All right, let's talk about gross domestic product because this is a concept you need to understand really before you understand economic growth. GDP is oftentimes what you hear it referred to, but it's the total amount of goods, those are your products, or services. Services can be a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, some type of service provided, and you're selling those services or those products in a country's year and a year's time. All those products and services are added up, and you see that makes up the GDP. Economic growth. This is an indication of your economy's health. Think of it like a health report. Is your economy growing or is it shrinking? If your economy is growing, what you do is you compare it's the increase in the value of the goods and services, GDP, from one year to the next. So it's basically a comparison of GDP from one year, let's say 2014 to 2015. So you take all of those goods and services produced in 1 year's time and you compare it to the next year, 2014 compared to 2015. If it grew, you see economic growth. If it shrinks, then you have a decreasing economy, and that's obviously a concern. I predict 2015 we will hopefully see economic growth, but we'll have to see, time will tell. Imports and exports. Imports are basically goods and services that you're bringing into, starts with an I, so does imports, bringing it into a country. That means you're buying something. Your country may choose not to make everything that it could. They may choose to import, buy from another country something else that they choose not to make, and they will export. That is goods and services that you trade or sell to another country. And those are products that are going out of a country. They're exiting, EX, like the word exit, they're going out of a country. Okay, so you're selling something in an export, you're buying something with an import. Let's say you choose to buy, for example, if you're Japan, you might choose to buy your energy source from the United States, and you're going to, we might import some of their cars or some of their technology because they've trained their people well. That would be an example of imports versus exports. Specialization. Specialization is basically the idea of doing something, making a country, or it could be a business, doing something and focusing on one thing and doing it well. Okay? It's a business or country focusing on a production of one thing and being very, very productive at it. Okay? For example, in our political cartoon down here, it says just steak. This restaurant is specializing in steaks only. This restaurant here is focusing on dessert, just pudding. They're just doing pudding. This restaurant here is looking at and making anything with potatoes. So, well, you see Mexican restaurants doing this. They're specializing in one type of food so that they can accommodate and do something very, very well. They can be the best Mexican restaurant. If they try to cook hamburgers, hot dogs, Mexican, Italian, you tend not to be as good. So again, it's taking something, for example, early on, we talked about the Middle East. Their resource is energy, their oil production. They focus primarily on energy and oil production and selling of that. That's where they make most of their money. They're going to import other things that they can buy with the money they've made on oil. That's an example of specialization. Currency. It's any form of money that's accepted as a medium of exchange. We sometimes, back in the day, we used all sorts of different types of commodities, which were actually items instead of money. But today we use paper money here, and we use the American dollar. And each country usually has its own currency, and that leads us to a currency exchange. Money is currency. The value of the currency between countries is that exchange that is made. And currency exchange and the rate, it's the amount of one currency that can be purchased for a given unit of another. How many euros does it equal for a dollar? That sometimes that fluctuates from day to day, from year to year. That's what you would need to do. If you're going to go over and travel Europe, you can't use dollars. You're going to want to go to a bank, you'll do a currency exchange, and you'll get euros to be able to go and travel in Europe, because their merchants don't want to take the American dollar. They want euros. You don't want to be paid in pesos here. If somebody from Mexico is coming to our country to travel, they would do an exchange and get the American dollar for their pesos. Investment and literacy rate. Investment, it's the use of income. You might invest it in capital, goods, computers, things that will make you productive in the future. It's about growth in the future. That's what an investment is. You might invest in your people. You might train people. You might not see the value today. You're going to put some money out there, but eventually that investment is going to make you more productive in the long run. Literacy rate. It's the ability to read and write. And we talked about that in one of the earlier slides when it came to the standard of living. But the higher, more educated your people are, your citizens, the more educated they are, the higher standard of living that they will enjoy. And that ends our economic dictionary. Hopefully this was helpful and a helpful overview, and study for your quiz.